5.9, inventory of information and other associated assets. Okay, so what does the standard actually require? What is it looking for? Well, it states that an inventory of information and other associated assets, including owners, shall be developed and maintained. Now, it's an interesting clause or control, because quite often when we go to talk to someone about information assets, they typically will talk about mobile phones, and they'll talk about laptops, and they'll talk about servers. And that's absolutely right. And to be honest with you, my first piece of advice would be, if you don't have a inventory of assets, then you need to create one. And it can be just a very simple Excel spreadsheet that, again, as the standard requires, it states that it needs to include the owner. So you would include typically the owner of the asset, the asset name, the asset tag, the date the asset was given to that individual, for instance. So if I'm working at your organization, you have this asset register, you would know that you've given me an Apple iPhone 13, and this is the serial number, and maybe you might include on there the configuration, how that's being configured. More on that at a later control. But that is at the very least what you need to identify. So this asset register that you're going to create, if you don't have anything else at this point in time, start there. What you could also do is speak to the person responsible for data protection in your organization. They will most likely have created something called a ROPA. That's a Records of Processing Activities. These are your data assets. These are your informational assets, which are also a requirement. Because remembering what it says in the standard, it's an inventory of information and other associated assets. So your data is an asset, of course. Without your data, your business will grind to a halt, right? So think about other assets, not just physical ones. But if this is your first attempt at ISO 27001, if you haven't implemented it yet and you are simply building up, start simple. Focus on anything of value that data flows through. So you're not doing a finance asset register, so you're not too interested in monitors and keyboards and mice and such. You're just focusing on those assets where data flows through them. This also includes, of course, USB sticks, thumb drives, external hard drives, perhaps. These are the kinds of things you'd want to include on there. Printers should be included, because printers have hard drives within them as well. So that's where you start with your asset register. You can then, the next step, the next iteration is you would then look at the data assets. That's the records of processing activities. If you haven't got a ROPA, well, that will be something we'll talk about on another video at some point. But think about what data exists around your organization. So create another spreadsheet, maybe another tab on the asset register, which talks about data assets. So there you might say you might go into your HR function and ask them about their data that flows through their organization, through your organization. What kind of data do they have access to? Where does that data sit? Who owns it? So is it the head of HR? Is there a different department perhaps that focuses on that data? How much data? So if you employ 50 people, 500 people, but you look in your HR system and you find there's 5,000 people listed, or 50 people when you've only got 5, well, why are you retaining that information? What is your data retention? So this does spread out and it asks lots of other questions, but that's fundamentally why you need an asset register. You can't protect what you don't understand. So you need to understand what assets you've got. So those are the two first parts, the step 1 and step 2. There is a third aspect that you should also consider as an asset as well, is software licenses. These are assets, remembering these are associated assets that you should consider. So again, think about an extra tab on your asset register which talks about software licenses. Because again, if you employ 5 people or 50 people and you take a look at Microsoft licenses, and in actual fact you've got, you're paying for maybe 70, 80 licenses, or whatever it is, then you could save your organization some money. Obviously, this becomes more complex and more important the bigger your organization. But even as smaller organizations, you need to ask, what software licenses do we hold? Because anecdotally, we've been to organizations before who have used malware protection software, which is free for personal use, but it's not free in a commercial organization, and yet they deployed it on 10 machines, and they're clearly breaching the compliance and the legal requirements of that software. So think about that, from that perspective as well. This is why having an asset register will allow you to identify these things, and making sure that you tag or you identify an owner to these assets is vitally important. Certainly when you're looking at someone who's leaving the organization, this is when the asset register becomes really powerful and really useful, because if I then leave your organization, by checking your asset register that Gary has a Apple iPhone, whatever it is, 13, or that I've got an Android phone, or that I've got a key fob, or that I've got a laptop, or I've got a desktop, or I've got a printer at home. Only by having this asset register in place will you know that and know to ask me for it. So again, you can save your organization some money by making sure that you get your assets back when someone leaves the organization or they are decommissioned. So there you are. Asset register, very important for multitude of different reasons. And it's a spreadsheet at the most. That's all you need to create. So there you are. I hope you found that useful. Thanks once again for watching, and please do like, comment and share, and subscribe. Remembering, every time you like or comment and subscribe, it enables this video to have a far further reach, and thereby helping someone else. So you're doing your bit for the community. So thank you once again. See you on the next video. Until then, stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. All the best. Bye.